Ashley, and today we are going to work on a painting that's looking up through kind of a forest canopy. And this is going to combine two things. One is kind of forced perspective and using this odd perspective to create this sense of drama. And the other is using negative space to create the opening through the canopy. So let's go ahead and flow right into it. Today I'm going to be using this Master's Touch by Fabriano watercolor paper. This is from Hobby Lobby and it's a 6x6 square. It's nice and heavyweight, it's 300 GSM, but it is not 100% cotton. I have not used this paper before, so we're gonna see how it goes and see what we think about it. I bought this size because it wasn't too expensive and I wanted to test out the paper, basically. But it's gonna be a fun size and shape for this painting. For brushes, I'm going to probably just use these two. These are both Degato brushes, brand. And one is a synthetic round. This is a size 10 round. Holds less water, it's a little bit snappier. And then this one is a squirrel hair, natural hair brush that holds a lot more water and it doesn't hold its shape. So it's really good for washes and to create not as precise brush strokes. I have a ton of other brushes that I might grab from at some point, but we'll see, probably not. I tend to just use what I have out. And then I have my Winsor & Newton Professional Watercolors in my palette here. This palette's very messy. I think soon I'm gonna clean it, but that's what we're gonna use today. And let's go ahead and get started. So we're gonna start just by getting in some foliage, basically. So I'm gonna mix up some greens. So I'm cleaning out this well here a little bit, adding just a ton of clean water to it and kind of mixing it all up to see what I have to start with, which is a very dirty green, right? A very muddy green. And that's gonna be fine for my shadows, but I don't want that for my main green color. So we're just gonna move some of that around over toward the side, and we're gonna get some nice fresh green. So I'm gonna mix my lemon yellow deep here, which I didn't spray down my palette. I should spray down my palette. Wake up these colors. Okay. Now, back to this lemon yellow deep. I need to refill it, but it'll be fine. And then I have to decide what color of blue I want to go with for this one. And I think I'm gonna go with ultramarine. Okay. And then I'm going to start just by getting some of my brightest yellow foliage here toward the center. And I'm basically creating a loose circle. Okay, so this is where our negative space is coming in. And we're just going to have basically a circle. So there's a little clearing in these canopy of trees. And then I'm just brushing that on, dry brush. So just dipping the brush in the paint and then holding it very horizontal to the page and dragging it across quickly and lightly. Okay, so there's kind of the basic idea of my shape here. Now I'm gonna get some tree trunks in. So I'm gonna mix up a reddish brown. So I'm doing blue, yellow, and alizarin crimson for my red. Okay, so that's kind of a purpley red right now, but that's okay. And then all of our trees are going to be angled toward the center. And we want to make sure that they start really thin and then they get wider toward the corners or toward the edges of the page. Okay. And some can be thinner and some can be thicker in general. They don't all have to be the same thickness. Okay. So basically anything that is at the middle of the edges is going to be straight in or straight up, straight down. Anything left of middle will angle toward the middle. It always angles toward the middle. So this and this are angled opposite of each other, right? We can just put in some little ones here and there. So there's the basics of my trees. Add in just some kind of stripes. It's wet and wet, so they're not going to stay defined or anything, but it's just going to add some texture in. And this is basically just purple that I'm adding. Now I'm going to add some more foliage. Okay, so dry my brush off and mix up some more greens. Okay. And then I'm just gonna basically be tapping that in, dry brushing some areas, and just tapping in some areas to get a variety of basically little dots, right? To be the leaves. And those trunks are still wet, so you might see, like here, I lifted. That's okay. I'm not worried about that. It's a very loose painting. We don't need to stress about anything. We don't need to stress about things getting mixed up or anything. Okay, in some areas, I'm going to let the leaves come out a little bit farther into my circle so that it's not a perfect circle. We don't want it to be a perfect circle. Okay, add a little bit more blue just to get some more darkness in. And tap that in. I don't want to tap that in at the top because that's going to be the most lit part where the sun is coming through. So the more blue tones are going to be farther away from the center. Okay, now I'm going to add some water and wash some of these areas out. Okay, because I don't want it to be all textured everywhere. The edges are going to be washed out because that's not our focus, right? So it's like you're looking at this part and that's what's in focus and the rest is kind of out of focus and blurry. Okay, and we're just going to add in a little bit more color to some of these areas that we just added water to. And here I'm just pulling some straight color from the wells. So some straight yellow and then some straight blue and letting it mix on the page where I just added all that water. Okay, now we're gonna let some of that dry and then go back and add in some detail for our trees and some more layers in the leaves. So I'm gonna use my heat gun here. So that the drying process is faster. Oopsie. Okay, that, because I used the heat gun, the glue kind of melted and the page came off. That's okay. So I'm just gonna take it off of the pad there. And it's just a pad, not a block. So it was only connected on one side anyway. So it's not gonna change anything in terms of our painting experience, really. Okay, so now I'm gonna add a little bit more of my yellows and blues to this purple that I had. Okay, just trying to make a darker brownish color. Okay, and then I'm going to add to my tree trunks here. And we're gonna start adding some branches now. Now, when you're looking up at trees, the leaves tend to be more on the top of the tree branches and not on the bottom. So you're actually gonna see more of the tree branch than you would if it was like a side view of the tree, which I just noticed that when I was laying in the hammock under my trees. Basically, that's kind of a difference. So you can paint your branches a little bit more solid here, and it still is believable. Versus if you were painting from a side view or like a top-down view, especially, if you were to paint your tree branches really solid, it would look super fake. But underneath, it doesn't look as fake. So just something to note. And maybe if you're tend to overpaint your branches, try to paint them from underneath and then it will still look good. Okay, so I'm just adding to the bigger trees first here. Adding that shadow down at the base, and then as we come up, adding in branches off. And thinking about making it like Y shapes, they don't come straight off, they come off to the side. And then they branch and they turn into little Ys here and there. And always getting thinner as we go farther out from the main tree trunk. And you might find that it's easier to turn the page, like to twist it, right? If you find that, do it. There's no right or wrong here on, how you are allowed to create. Do what you need to do. Okay. Sometimes it's a little bit easier perspective-wise to keep the tree more upright. And I don't know that I mentioned this, but for this I'm using the stiffer brush. So this is the Degato Round Artist brush. The link to these Degato brushes is in the description if you're interested in using them. I like them because they don't shed and they have held up really nice in terms of keeping their point. And then the ferrule is not loose or anything, so they're a nice brush that's not very expensive. So I appreciate that as well. Okay, so those are kind of the main trees, and then for the ones that are going to be smaller and kind of more off to the back, I'm going to add a little bit lighter. So more water to that mixture, but the same mixture, just more water. And these ones, since they are farther away, more of the foliage will cover them because whatever's in front of these trees will be covering it, right? So these ones, the branches can be a little bit more broken. Like they're hiding behind some of the other trees. Okay, so there's all my branches. Now I'm gonna go back in and add more greens, okay? So my yellow is nice and dirty now. That's okay though, because it's just gonna make the greens a more natural hue. So basically that's now looking like a little more like yellow ochre. And then when I add the ultramarine to it, it's gonna be a muted green. Okay. And then just kind of tap that so that I don't have a lot of water on the brush. Still got a lot of water. And kind of drag that around. So in some ways, I find it actually easier to do dry brushing with the brush that holds more water, which seems odd, but because it doesn't hold its shape, as you drag it across, it's going to separate a little bit more and create a little bit more texture. Okay, just adding some yellows right along the edges here, where it would be the most highlighted. Take some of that off. Make it even lighter. And just tap that in. Okay. And I don't need to add a lot because I did a lot of the work already before I painted the trunks, right? And since we're seeing a lot of the trunks here from underneath, we don't have to have a ton more. Just a little bit more darkness in some areas close to the trunks. Okay, now I'm just going to add the lightest hint of some blue in the middle. So this is just going to be some ultramarine. So I added some clean water, and then I'm just going to touch it with a hint of blue and let it kind of do its thing there. Okay. And then after, I think I'm just going to do a bird flying through the trees. We can try to lift some like sun rays if we want. To do that, you would get a clean, slightly damp brush. So you don't want it to have a lot of water. And then you'd want to pick where your sun is. So I feel like it's actually the brightest right in here. So I kind of want my sun to be right there, okay? And so I'm gonna add some clean water and then just take the very edge of my towel and lift it up, okay? Right here. See how that's lifting? And then you just take your brush and add some lines, again, of clean water away from that and lift. Okay? And then you're gonna start getting those sun ray, that impression of sun rays coming through the trees. And this is where actually having non-cotton paper is beneficial because it tends to lift easier. So you can create those rays a lot easier actually. So that's just a technique that you can use to create sun rays. If you want. And I don't know how I feel about it on this painting specifically. I've done other paintings where I've done sun rays, but I don't know. I'm gonna add some bright yellow right along the edges. Okay, now to add the bird, I'm just gonna take this super small brush. They're calling this a liner brush. It's Giorgione is the brand. This is not a liner brush. This is just a small round detail brush. I don't know why they call it a liner brush. Liner brushes are longer, but that's okay. And then I'm just gonna take some of my like brown mix, but make it a little bit more gray. So adding a little bit more blue to it. but the same idea with the 3 colors. And then I'm going to add a bird. Okay, so we're going to be looking up at this bird, right? So it's going to have the wings here, and I'm just kind of dabbing them in. Okay, and then the matching wing on the other side, matching-ish, because, you know, I can't paint symmetrically. Okay. And then we're going to have the body coming up to the little head. And it gets a little bit narrower, and then you're going to see the tail. Okay. Now I'm going to just lighten that up by dabbing it with the towel. It's still wet, so I can lighten it up. Add a little bit of a shadow. And then I'm going to take that brush and add some water along the edges of the wings to lift out, because there would be light shining through those wings. Okay. And there is our painting. I'm trying to decide which way's up. That's why I'm spinning it. I think that because of the way that I painted the bird, this way needs to be up. But I kind of like this way up better. I think it needs to be this way. Anyway, so that is our completed painting. I really hope you enjoyed this one. This is working on negative space and perspective and a little bit of lifting, but mostly negative space and perspective was the goal of this painting. And thoughts on the paper, you know, it reacts okay. It definitely doesn't react like 100% cotton paper. If you're doing something that doesn't have a lot of wet on wet bleeds that you want to be nice and smooth and like nice clean washes, this is a great paper. So for this painting, it was fine because I didn't need anything to be a nice, like clean, easy, smooth wash. I wanted a lot of texture in the foliage. So it worked really well for this painting. And then having the ability to lift was nice. But would I buy this paper for all of my watercolor projects? No, absolutely not. But it was fun to paint on nonetheless. So again, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. It would really help the video a lot. And then also check out my channel for tons more content. I have a lot more real-time tutorials and then just informational content about painting in watercolor. And so please check it out and subscribe. Have an awesome rest of your day. And until next time, keep those paints flowing.